Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Accountants Club podcast. I'm Jim Scott, and today I'm joined by Mark Jenkins. Mark is the founder and director of The Gap, which is a business advisory process engine that helps accountants to market, sell, and deliver advisory services. Hi, Mark. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. Thanks, everybody, for making the time to listen to this podcast.
No, it's great to see you. Mark and I met for the first time face-to-face anyway at Accountex this year. How did you find Accountex, Mark?
Oh, it was great. Yeah, it was a pretty overwhelming experience. I don't know how many thousand people were in there in the Excel Centre there, but yeah, it was intense. The number of people presenting at different times. It's really hard to split yourself into 20 different pieces to go and see everything. But yeah, it was fantastic. How about you?
Yeah, it was brilliant. It was just great to be back face-to-face with people. I think the last number I saw, I think there was just under. I think there was about 14,000 people had registered for the event, and I think there was about 9,000 made it through the doors over the 2 days. So it was a really busy event, and actually for the first time, I felt that there was a different atmosphere there. I think there was a bit of a buzz, and maybe that's because it hasn't been on for a couple of years. Maybe it's because there was more focus on digital and things like advisory services as well. Hence this conversation, I guess. But yeah, it was a great event, and it was great to meet you finally face to face as well, because we've had quite a number of conversations over the phone. Because you're based, of course, in New Zealand, but you've been in the UK for a little while, and you're here for another couple of months, yeah?
That's correct. Yes. So I'm based in a very small town in New Zealand called Whakatane, and I'm not swearing when I say that. It's spelt W-H, 25,000 people. I guess I had my own accounting firm there for nearly 20 years. So I still am a public practitioner. So I still have that badge of honor, if you like, or badge of dishonor. And so in my own accounting firm, I set up quite a few advisory services. So I've always had a keen interest in the advisory space. So that was kind of my earlier days. But yeah, New Zealand is quite similar to the UK in a lot of ways. You've got MTD here, and we've had that for probably nearly 10 years. So we've had we don't have the complexity of the tax system. So in New Zealand, a lot of accountants are kind of moving into the advisory space a lot more readily, because compliance margins are shrinking. The compliance work's not running out. Don't get me wrong. I'm not a doomsday sayer about that. I'll never say that. I don't believe that will ever happen. But there is certainly a need for more of a shift to these value-added services. So I guess that was the birth of The Gap in New Zealand because of that.
Yeah. I'd like to probably start there, actually, in terms of the conversation, because there was a lot of talks at Accountex. I did a talk there, and I talked a little bit about, as part of that, the relationship between compliance work and the need to kind of move or navigate towards advisory services, and how technology might begin to accelerate the need for accountants to think in that way. What's your view on how technology will impact the need for advisory and the compliance work that accountants are doing today in the UK?
Yeah, look, I think it's a really great opportunity, because I think we've got the merging of, one, the technology to make this easier to do, but also an increased awareness that people who are in business, and I think we can say a positive coming out of the pandemic really is that real need for empathy and understanding of the challenges that small and medium-sized business owners have. They're not so much about improving cash flow or profit. That might be survival right now. Sure, it might be about growth and profitability and exit value, that sort of thing. But equally, I think there's an importance on kind of the softer things. We talk about the three freedoms a lot at The Gap. So time freedom, financial freedom, and mind freedom. So of course, compliance gives clients this mind freedom. They can kind of, their clients can sleep at night knowing that HMRC is not going to come knocking on their door. So that mind freedom's already there. We've probably had too much of a focus on the financial freedom, assuming that small and medium-sized business owners just want to make more money. But I think the pandemic's helped us to realize, both as practitioners ourselves and also for our clients, that actually the time freedom is equally valuable, and sometimes a bit of a driver. So what's happening in my view is we're getting a little bit of a shift from, in the UK, I'm seeing it a lot more. This happened probably in New Zealand probably 2 or 3 years ago, where technology is making it easier to get real-time data. So it's much easier to have insight and information about how a business is going. But the small and medium-sized business owners are too busy. They're not going to read that data. They need somebody to interpret it. So we need to have more engagement. And so to me, that is the birth of advisory, just having better conversations with your clients about their real-time data and about their goals and aspirations and what are the problems and challenges that they have, and just talking to them about how you might work together to get them to those goals quicker, whatever those redefined goals are, and to overcome those problems and challenges along the way. So really exciting times. A lot of talk about advisory. This sort of talk's been going on for a very long time. I get quite a bit of frustration around the lack of practical tools and the how-to. The technology piece is phenomenal. There's been an explosion of new technology, which is absolutely great. I love it. What hasn't happened, in my view, is we haven't had an explosion in how do you market, sell, and deliver these advisory services. So if you have a fantastic dashboard tool, for example, you're getting really good information in real time about the client. But if you give that service to the client for free, then the risk is that you're just going to be spinning your wheels. You're working harder. You're giving better quality information, but we have to be commercial as accountants. We have to think, hold on, let me just put my business hat on here. How do I actually monetize this myself? So that's about marketing and selling the value of it and putting it into some sort of a package.
Yeah.
I don't know if that resonates with you.
No, it really does. And a lot of the conversations that I've had with accountants, certainly over the last couple of years, has been, there's an acknowledgement that advisory is an inevitable future role for the accountant. There's a desire to get into advisory, but there's a real dilemma as to how do you create the space and capacity within the practice to be able to get to that. And I think that's where the technology piece comes in, because for that compliance and that kind of productivity type work, workflow management and all those sorts of things, there are all kinds of tools out there that can help you drive efficiency through the practice. The question comes back to your point around the time management, and then once you free up that time, you have a choice, right? You can either take on more compliance work, or you can add greater value through advisory work to either existing clients or new clients. And I think that's the piece for me that a lot of the accountants I've spoken to over recent times, that's the bit they struggle with, not the context or the concept, and not the desire. It's the practicalities of moving them into that space. Do you have any advice for the listeners as to how they might be able to kind of step across that bridge to get to advisory?
Yeah, sure. Look, I'll just grab my magic wand and I'll just pull it out and say, this is exactly how to do it. No, not being facetious. I think what I often refer to as the hamster wheel. Your people are, and I was guilty of this myself. I was growing my business, and I mean, I grew from a team of 3 to a team of 40 and 2 officers, and that was actually no fun. I got so busy and I was constantly looking at new technology to free up capacity. But every step of the way, when I created capacity, I took on more work. Then I had this BFO, a blinding flash of the obvious, that actually if I halved the number of clients that I had and doubled the average fee, then I could actually run the business with fewer team members, because team members were hard to find, and I'm sure that's a phenomenon here as well.
That's even worse now than it's ever been, I think. But yeah,
absolutely.
Conversation,
So freeing up looking at, just stepping back, helicopter view, look down on the business and say, right, if I could take the top 20% of the clients are generating 80% of the revenue, that's fine. They're getting all the service that they need. It's that middle 60% that are perhaps getting good quality compliance work, but we don't have capacity or time to do the work on those clients at the level that we would love to do. And then we have what I refer to often as the tail, which is the bottom 20%. And they might not necessarily be the lowest paying clients. They may be the ones who take the most time. They're the least profitable clients. We're going to be careful when we talk about the tail, because I'm going to suggest we cut off the tail. The tail is the clients that are taking too much time. We're not making money on them. We don't enjoy working with them. The team don't enjoy working with them. Something has to change. We can't stop putting more clients in at the top and create capacity with technology and then just take a whole lot more in at the top. We've got to look at the tail and say which are the least profitable. Now that's really an exercise of just getting a client base and going through and saying, I need to chop off the tail. I need to get rid of 20 to 40 clients. Now, the great thing is that at the moment, we've got a perfect opportunity to do that through a price adjustment. We've got inflationary time, so we can say, some of these clients might need a 50 to 100% price increase, and they may vote to go somewhere else, and that's fine. That's the only way, in my view, that we're going to create capacity. We have to have fewer clients and offering a higher value service to those clients. And the only way to offer a higher value service, so that we again don't spin our wheels and become a hamster ourselves in that wheel, is to have a system that our team members can use. So just as our compliance work is systemized, we want our advisory work to be systemized as well. Because I do see a lot of accountants who are very good at this work with no system. And so without the system, they can't leverage or scale up that aspect of the business. So the idea of doubling the average fee per client is just aspirational. So I'm sorry, that's a very long-winded explanation.
No, that's great. One of the things I'm fascinated by things like systems. So where you have people like yourself who've done things very successfully with a business or with a specific workflow process, where they systemize things and essentially create a kind of cookie cutter type environment that people can pick up and reuse. Could you explain specifically what you mean by a system, Mark? So what does the GAP system look like, for example, and how does it help in the transition of cutting off that long tail, deploying the right kind of conversation with the client, defining the right pieces of work that you want to get involved with and that you can charge more? How does it help to support that process for the accountant?
Yeah, so I think the key thing is to start with a process that you're already running, that perhaps you have it in your head what that process looks like. So say, for example, for me, I was doing business planning one-on-one with clients. So I would invite a team member in, and she wrote heaps of notes about how I was running that planning session. The client thought she was writing minutes of the meeting. I was actually typing the minutes. She was making notes about how to do that. That became the delivery notes for that business planning process. Right. Equally, you could do the same with an annual accounts review meeting, have somebody sit in and make notes about the process. That process, that's the delivery notes. The template I was using became the template that we would use again and again and again. The pre-work I'd already sent was another template that we would use again. So that's what I mean about systemization. Sometimes people refer to a cookie cutter approach. It's not a cookie cutter approach. The science is the system that you use. That's flow charts, that's pre-work, that's delivery notes, that's videos describing how you do it. There's the templates that you use. That's the science. The art is what you bring, your personality, what your clients are used to hearing from you, the way you speak to them. Because if you suddenly started showing them video content with somebody with a Kiwi accent, they're going to go, oh, that's just no use to me at all. So we have to make sure that the team members have a system that they can follow and use their own style. And then we can be sure that the quality is always the same all the way through. And so that everybody in our accounting firm, it's always going to be delivered to the same high standard, and the output will be the same. And we know that the team can then say, right, I would like to learn how to do business planning. Well, watch this video, read these delivery notes, sit in on the session with me, see how I'm following the system, just the same as you do with the compliance side of the business.
And I assume that is sort of continually evolving, so that those processes and systems for all you know, people will apply their own personality and their own, I guess, personal brand over the top of those things to give it the art piece. But that science continually evolves. Yes.
Absolutely. And the good thing about the science is that in my day, when I started doing this in sort of 2007, 2008, we had Word and Excel. They were that was our technology piece for our flow charts and our scripts and our delivery notes. Well, now with the Gap, we have, you know, the ability to do that in a portal. It's all cloud-based, it's paperless. You can email out the pre-work, you can get the responses back. So the system is fully there, but also there's video content we can use. And so, yes, you do, just as you develop your own art as you get better at this, so too does the technology get better, and we're always adding new content. We've just written some content around how do you upsell a cash flow and profit improvement meeting from an annual accounts review meeting. So again, if you're thinking, oh, I've got so much work to do, I don't want to suddenly double the amount of work I'm doing for this client, but I'm going to try and sell a one-off cash flow profit improvement meeting, maybe 125, 150 pounds for that, with some sort of guarantee to the client that if you can't show them 500 pounds worth of value, you'll give them their money back.
Yeah.
And then you go into the content that's in the Gap, 7 ways to grow the business, or the cash flow improvement tactics that are in there. And your team can do this as well and show them what's possible. So I think launching advisory out of compliance is always going to be at the core. That's where you're having the level of engagement with clients. That's where you identify and reimagine the way you operate. And that gives you the leverage opportunity to start offering some sort of advisory service. And it has to be a systemized process, or it won't work.
Yeah, no, I get that completely. What's the biggest obstacle to people engaging in this type of activity, in your opinion, Mark? Because you said it yourself earlier on. People have talked about advisory for, God goodness, for 15 years, maybe more. And it's always been something that accountants have aspired to get to, but many have struggled. What is the biggest single obstacle, in your opinion?
I might offend some people here, but I'll speak to myself as what was my biggest obstacle, and maybe this will resonate with others. I was my biggest obstacle.
Right.
I was so busy chasing more work and serving clients more, giving more value away for free, fighting fires, not being commercial in my approach, freeing up capacity with technology, and then taking a whole lot of new clients on. So I was my worst enemy. It wasn't until I got a coach and my coach said, come on, let's just stop and do some numbers here and work out what we can do. So I think the biggest obstacle, people will say, is time. Absolutely, it was time for me. But it was time for me because I wasn't thinking clearly about how I could work differently.
The prioritization, right?
Yeah. So an example was I was spending the most of my time reviewing sets of annual financial statements and meeting with clients to go through them.
Yeah.
Within 2 years of that, after systemizing that process, I had the team doing the review. I was just doing the sign-off, and I had my team members running the annual accounts review meeting using the system. Then I was using that time that I would otherwise have spent doing reviewing work and annual accounts review meetings. I spent that time doing complementary client review meetings, where I was still having the relationship with the client, nothing changed for them. And they would then have a meeting with me that was forward facing.
Yeah.
And there'll be people on this podcast who go, yeah, that's what I do. Let's make sure that when we are looking forward with our clients, we have a service that we can offer. Maybe it's a cash flow profit improvement meeting. Maybe it's a quarterly review. Ideally, it's an annual business plan. But not just a forward-facing conversation for 15, 10, 20 minutes during the annual accounts review, and that's enough, because it's not. Your clients want more. They don't know they want this yet, because it's a bit like the Steve Jobs quote. Yeah. People don't know what they want till you show it to them. But when you can show them how they can achieve those 3 freedoms, they'll be coming back to buy from you more often, willingly, and you'll be adding that value, and you have to have a system to do that. I wouldn't have survived without writing that system myself. And I don't want people to spend the 10 years I spent writing that system in their own firm, because we have a whole team of content writers now that do that.
Yeah. No, well, I mean, I can testify to that, because I mean, I still am a small business owner, and I ran my own small business for 6 years, and the reality is, I had no interest in kind of, after doing a 10 or 12-hour day working in the business, to come back and sit and, you know, calculate financial performance, whether that be looking retrospectively or looking into the future. You know, your day is consumed as a business owner by running the business and doing what you need to do to make it successful in the moment. So having the ability for somebody to look or help you look further out and plan for that, and think ahead, and make sure your future is kind of defined, and you're kind of chasing down the right types of things is incredibly valuable, I think. I'm really interested to learn, to get a practical example. I've got 2 more things I want to cover off with you. One is just to get a real world example of where this stuff, other than in your business, maybe one of your clients or somebody you've worked with in the past, that this has kind of transformed what they do. Have you got an example that you can give?
Oh, I've got loads of examples. We have and I'd love to see this in the accountants club as well. I'd love to see people sharing their wins and stories of what they've done. We have a closed Facebook group of our GAP members, and they're always posting their wins and stories that they've had. And one example, it was one of our, I think, clients up in Scotland, one of our members in Scotland, had a meeting with a client, and he had talked about the value of that client's business. And he said, look, you know, we're doing the annual accounts. Potentially, we should be doing more. Could we have a one-off meeting to talk about this? And I don't know exactly how he did this, and it wasn't magic, but he showed by increasing the profitability, he could add another $2 million worth of value, £2 million worth of value to that company. We get stories like this all the time, where clients are saying, I've never engaged with an accountant like this before. Nobody's showed any personal interest in me. And I was going to ask you a question, actually, Jim. And when in the 6 years that you were in business, what was your relationship with your accountant like?
It's a great question. I actually changed accountants partway through because I wasn't happy with the relationship, and I'm much happier now with the relationship I've got with my accountant. But it was for this exact reason is why I shifted provider.
I had a wonderful experience with one of my clients who I did annual business planning with and quarterly meetings with. They had a motor mechanics business, I guess you'd say. And over the sort of 10, 15 years I was working with them, and when I sold the accounting firm, we sort of had a bit of a get together, and they thanked me for what I'd done. And they said, you showed us how to make more money so that we could buy the building that we're in. You told us when to form a corporation rather than be a sole trader or a partnership. You told us when to, when we could buy the building and how we should structure the finance. But the most important thing was that they saw me as someone that was vested in their success. Our core purpose statement was unlocking business potential. And it was just being side by side with them. Now, you have to do that on a regular basis, or you won't get these sorts of conversations. And I think there was a study done in Australia recently where 80% of small and medium-sized business owners don't know how to engage with their accountant. So they keep going back for the compliance because that's all they know. But actually the stresses they're having, as you're saying, at the end of the day, they don't want to be reconciling their bank statements or doing their VAT returns. They want to be relaxing and having that time freedom. But they don't know yet that that's what the accountant can help them with. And when the accountant can help to add value, show them how they can improve profitability and cash flow. And we've got mountains of content in there on KPI improvement tactics guides and cash flow management tactics guides, heaps of things that you can do, practical improvement. Okay, right, if we lift margin by 2%, this is what it'll do to the bottom line. We reduce debtor days by 5. This is what it will do to your cash flow. Is that something you'd like to have a project around that we work on together? So really practical things that will make a big difference to clients. And that's what we're about.
Brilliant. Well, that leads me nicely on to the last question I wanted to ask you, which is, I want to try and make sure that when, if people have kind of listened and endured our conversation for whatever it is, nearly 30 minutes now, I want to make sure they go away with something practical, something they can do today to advance their thinking or improve their business, or change something within the practice, what one piece of advice would you give that somebody can go away and action today?
Look, I think the key thing is, and it comes back to us getting out of our own way. And having said what I've said about practical improvement, I'm going to go to something that some listeners are going to say, oh, that's a bit fluffy. And then I'll give a practical answer as well. So it starts with you. If you're in your own way because you're busy all the time, then define, if you haven't already, what your core purpose is. Mm-hmm. So my core purpose at my accounting firm, it was key accountants. It was spelled Q-U-A-Y, but it was unlocking business potential. So when I was working with my clients, I felt like a bit of a leech. I would go through their annual accounts and listing the expenses in the P&L in an alphabetical order, and accounting would come up at the top. So I would quickly skip past that because I didn't want to have that conversation. And then I realized that's dumb. I should be, if my clients, and this is what I started saying to them, if you see me as a cost, then I need to be cut, just like all your other overheads. But if you see me as a strategic partner in helping you to run a better business, then you need me now more than ever. Well, I better back that up with something. Yeah, so I had to back it up with the services. So that was the conversation. So start with the core purpose. Hopefully what's coming through in this podcast is our core purpose at The Gap as accountants accelerating small business success. We want the small business owners to do better. Yeah. So define your core purpose would be my tip. Yeah. If you want something practical and for the logical thinkers and thinking, right, how do I make money out of this? In your annual accounts review meeting, talk to your clients about, just if you're having a meeting with your clients, talk to them about their goals. What are you trying to achieve? What's getting in the way? 3 questions. What are you trying to achieve? What's getting in the way? And how can we work together to help you overcome those problems that are in the way and get you to your goals quicker? And if you want it to be super practical, use this mindset. It's called now, where, how. This is where you are now. That's your annual financial statements or the management reports or wherever you are, the hours of work you're doing, the role that you have. That's where you are now. Where is where would you like to go? That's the goals of where you'd like to get to. And then how is how will we work together? If the answer were that simple for the client to get to their where, they would have already worked it out. Yeah. So that you need to get a commitment from the client to work together to help them overcome those problems and challenges and get to the goals. Just start talking to your clients like this and make a massive difference, I'm sure.
Brilliant, Mark. Thank you very much. That's really helpful. And I'm sure it'll be, I'm sure very practical advice that people can put into practice straight away. So thank you for that. Thank you for your time. It's great to speak to you again, as always. And we will have you back on the podcast as soon as you can.
Love to be back on the podcast anytime. Thanks for the opportunity, and thanks for listening, everyone.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, everyone.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.